Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 261.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad you're here today because, you may have woken up today and was like, man, I wish I could go right back to bed and start over. Or maybe you're having one of those days where you're like, man, everything is going perfectly, and you're wondering, what could I do to make that happen intentionally? Now, all of us have had those days where they've gone well, and we were like, man, that was a great day. Hope tomorrow's that way. Well, my guest today has a system for you that will most importantly help you to make that happen intentionally. And I like intention. I like systems. Dude, I just like the guy we're going to be talking to today. He is one of the few, as you guys know, that has made it here twice. And there's a reason for that. It's because he's just that flat awesome. But more importantly, he's helped me understand me in some levels when it comes to just making changes and becoming different. I have with me today none other than Craig Ballantyne. He is out there helping thousands. And when I say thousands, let's say about 150,000 people read his emails. That's a lot. He's helping people get more done with Early to Rise. He's out there coaching them with their masterminds and a published author of the Perfect Day Formula. I'm excited to talk to him. We're going to find out what a perfect day entails and how to make sure you have more of them. Craig, you there?
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Very good. I really appreciate that intro, and I'm excited to talk about all the stuff that we have in the book. But I really loved all the conversations that we've had about making the most out of your day, and you've really done some amazing stuff and just kicked up your productivity. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish in the year and a bit since we've had our last chat on this show.
Yes. I have to say that there's a lot to do. It's one thing to teach something. It's another to catch something. Having had the privilege of rooming with you a couple of times, I'm just like, I caught so much in the few days that we were together, and it's been able to allow us to impact so many more people. It's been awesome and fun. But enough about me. I know this to be true. My kids think the perfect day pretty much comprises of candy, maybe the fair, a whole bunch of sleep and sugar and running around doing nothing productive. I'm going to take a stab and say that your idea for a perfect day is a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we must have perfect days as ambitious, successful adults so that we can leave the legacy that we want to leave behind. And that's really what it comes down to. We're going to talk about the 3 sections of the perfect day. And it's that final section that gets me most excited because it's all about, building that family, that business, that system that puts it in place so that you can have more freedom in your life and that you can take your kids and have their versions of the perfect day, maybe once in a while, definitely not every day. And, they create those memories because at the end of the day, all the stuff that we're going to show people how to do today is to give them the 2 things that really bring them a fulfilled life, which is more time with the people they love and more experiences that create amazing memories.
Indeed. In fact, one of the greatest things that for those who don't know, or if you didn't catch episode 105, if you're wondering how long ago it was episode 105 when Craig and I were first talking. One of the things he said to me personally, which it has stuck mostly because, I see my kids all the time. He was like, one of the reasons that you need to become more disciplined, Jay, is so that you can invest more time with your kids. And it's actually been one of the things that I believe my kids appreciate. It's not like, being 8, 6, and 5, they're going to say, hey, Dad, we appreciate you being around more. But it's definitely something that I can tell when I'm doing it. And I'm just like, yes, I'm able to do that consciously now because of you. And it's been awesome in that way. Now, for those who may not have heard episode 105, Craig, do me a small favor and just kind of give us an understanding of how you got started being an entrepreneur. I mean, before you had hundreds of thousands of people listening to you, before you were a contributing author to magazines, before you wrote your book, before all of this great stuff, kind of take us back a little bit and share with us, who is Craig Ballantyne?
Yeah, I mean, I started off as a strength and conditioning coach. So that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the pros as a strength and conditioning coach because I couldn't make it as an athlete. I'm just a little guy. And, in 2000, I started writing for Men's Health magazine. I realized how much I liked helping, the everyday person who has all these obstacles in their way, from all day long they have to work for a boss that sometimes they don't like, and they got the commutes. And I was able to show them these shortcuts, scientifically based shortcuts, to help them get the most out of their exercise and health. And then over the years, I built that up into, well, if I can show them those shortcuts in health, what can I show them in terms of building a business? Because at the same time I was doing that, I was a personal trainer and I was building an online business where I was able to sell my programs to people all over the world in countries that, back then I hadn't heard of. And I started teaching other entrepreneurs, mostly fitness experts, but all types of entrepreneurs these days, how to do exactly that, how to take their expertise and turn it into a business. And that's something that I've grown into since 2007. And then we took over another website called Early to Rise in 2011. And that has been a business that's been around since 2000, that was created by one of my mentors. And in fact, there was a time in 2006 when I hired my first business coach. And I said to him on the first call, I want to have a business like Early to Rise. And then 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days later, after I'd taken all this action and helped so many other people and met so many other people and done all this networking and learned so much, that I actually bought the business of my dreams. So that was a really cool moment. It was like out of that cheesy movie, The Secret, but it really did happen to me. The movie mentions the law of attraction, but I changed it to the law of action attraction, because if you're out there going to seminars or getting coaching and meeting people online or offline that are good people and sharing your goals with them and doing the right things, other people are going to help you achieve exactly what you want. And I've experienced that a couple times, and it's really, really amazing. And I talk about it a little bit in the middle section of the book.
Now, I just want to bring something out because I know someone else heard it too. You said 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days. I'm just curious, why not go all the way to the hours? I mean, hey.
Well, I guess it might be 16 days and 22 hours, because I remember the exact moment when I had the call, because I was having the calls every 2 o'clock, every day at 2 o'clock. Well, not every day, every week at 2 o'clock with my mentor, Eastern Standard Time. And then I remember, the 5 years, 3 months, and so many days later, I was visiting my family on the farm when my dad was sick, and I was trying to spend as much time with him as possible. And I got a text message from my friend, and he was at a seminar with the man who owned Early to Rise, and he said, "Hey, would you still want to buy Early to Rise?" And I got back to him immediately, and then we struck while the iron was hot. And about that, Jay, and all the people that listen to your advice. When the deal is on the table, you got to go. And so we flew down to Florida, and we had the meeting, and we made the presentation, and we made the offer and did the negotiations to buy the business. And that's what you got to do when that house comes on and it's a deal, and you got to get in there, and you got to be the first person. You got to be hungry like a shark. And so that was, what happened for me. And that's why it sticks in my mind so much. The details of where I was, what I was doing, it just really is something that I will always remember.
Indeed. And I get that totally. I thought it was awesome. It's just a further testament to the level of detail and preparedness that you have always, at least since I've known you, approached life with. And I'm just like, man, you're just that example, which I think is awesome. Now, my question though is in order to get to become that person. I mean, we're all on this journey of becoming, and we all start out less than perfect, we'll say, or less than the version that we would really like to be, but we're on this journey to continue to improve. So I'm curious as to how you actually define a perfect day.
Well, it's perfect day is where you need to start ahead. You have to start ahead with planning because, it doesn't matter what you do. If you get up late and you feel like you're chasing the world, that is the worst feeling. Or like at 5 o'clock where you feel like you've done all this activity, but you've accomplished nothing. And you're like, oh man, I didn't get this done. I didn't get that done. I didn't get that done. And the perfect day, it prevents all of that because you are up before everybody else is. You're up and getting work done on your number one priority. And so you need to know your number one priority. And when you do and you attack it first thing in the morning, and even if you only attack it for 5 minutes, you have made progress. You have had a victory that the world cannot take away from you, no matter how crazy the rest of the day gets. So, in a simple example, we help a lot of people get out of debt. And, if they get up and spend 5 minutes going through their finances and, cutting out some bills and that they don't need and, finding ways to reduce the amount of interest they pay, even in 5 minutes, you can make good progress there. And you do that every single day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you make those victories, you can get out of debt. Or you can find the next really great deal that's going to give you great cash flow. Or you can find the love of your life sitting down and thinking. So most people, they go through their days right now with no time to themselves. And if you have no time to yourself to think, you're never going to get ahead. So that's the first thing that we do, that we dial in the perfect day formula, is getting some time to attack your number one priority and then being planned for the rest of the day so that you are, bang, got this meeting, bang, it's done on time, bang, we're on to this, got to make this presentation. Good, finish it up on time, taking the breaks that we need to. And again, sticking to that schedule so that, if you stick to that schedule over the course of the day, real rigid, when 5 o'clock comes, you get to go home, be on time for dinner. Or like my friend Bedros, who you met, Jay, he goes home, he runs a franchise. He has a franchise. He has, tons of employees. He has a lot of people coming to him for help, yet he is still able to get home on time to play guitar with his son before dinner and then have dinner with his family and then play ping pong with his daughter and his son after dinner. So not only is he home on time for dinner, but actually before dinner. And it's just amazing when I hear stories of high-level entrepreneurs like that and like yourself who have dialed in their mornings, getting their to-do list done early in the day so that you're ahead of the game. And when you're ahead of the game, you always feel like you're winning and you never have that stress of, oh man, another day wasted. I hate it when I see people who are hardworking, ambitious people and they have a day stolen from them.
Indeed. And I like the phrasing you just said right there, a day stolen, meaning we had a chance to protect it, but yet we did nothing about it in so many different ways. And I know those days when I'm absolutely on because I look up at the clock and it's like 10:30 and I'm like, man, I've gotten so much done already. I feel like I'm like done with the day, but yet there's still so much more time. So,
right.
And I love that. Those, and today just happens to be one of those days, by the way. So it's pretty cool to be talking to you on today, when that being one of those days for me. Now, when it comes down to it, break this down for us. How on earth does one actually, because I like the subtitle of the book, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life. How does one do that?
Well, it actually starts yesterday. So most people will get up in the morning and be reactive. And the reactive person is going to struggle in life because they're going to react to their alarm clock. They're going to hit snooze. They're going to get behind. They're going to, get into traffic because they didn't get up early enough to avoid traffic. They're going to sit in traffic. They're going to listen to talk radio or something that's not proactive. And they're going to get behind. They're going to get frustrated and angry at what they hear. They're going to react to the fact that they didn't have time for breakfast by going to Dunkin' Donuts, getting a huge coffee and a bunch of sugar. And they're going to pay for that later in the morning. And then, in order to get more energy, they're going to react to that by going to Burger King and eating something terrible there. And their body's going to react to that by falling asleep at 2:00. And then they're going to react to that by having to stay late at work. And it's just that reactive life is how you get your life stolen. But if you're proactive, then you actually start today, yesterday. So you start, having a great day today by planning it out. If you're done work at 5, you plan out tomorrow at 4:30, where you just write out all the things going through your head related to work. And then you take that sheet, you maybe put it in a drawer, you leave it behind, you go home and you're present with your family, and you have your next day scripted out so that you wake up and you know exactly what to do. You know exactly what to work on is your number one priority. And here's an advanced woo-woo trick here for you, Jay, is getting your subconscious to do the work overnight. So there's a book that most people will probably recognize called Think and Grow Rich. And there's actually a funny story about the name. If it's true, which I hope it is, but I've heard it from one of my mentors, Dan Kennedy, and he said, up until 3 hours before the deadline for that book to be submitted, the book was actually called Use Your Noodle to Get the Boodle. Yeah. So Napoleon Hill has a nap, and he has his subconscious mind working for the title. He wakes up, Think and Grow Rich, and he submits that right before the deadline, and the rest is history, right? And so we can do the same thing at night. So as a writer, I've done it many times. Doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does work, and it can really, really accelerate your success in life. You look at your top priorities and you think, okay, brain, you got some work to do for me tonight. I want you to go and find the answers to these problems. I want you to go and figure out which of these two houses is a better deal. I want you to weigh those in your mind. I want you to go through like this vast computer. Your brain is an amazing computer. So I want my subconscious just to go through all the files here and figure out, what experiences would, weigh the positives on this deal, or what experience would weigh the negatives on this deal. And then I wake up in the morning with clarity. And that's, it sounds crazy, but when you try it out, it will work a couple times. And you'll just be like, wow. And then you get into the habit of every night planning not only your next day and not only, getting all those thoughts out, but you get your brain to work overnight while you're enjoying a rest, and you wake up. And you can be more ahead of the game than having your brain work for you overnight. So that's, those are some of the things that allow you to get into that perfect day. Then you wake up, you just follow the plan. You follow the plan, and you get to the point at 10:30 in the morning where you're like, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe I've gotten this much done when usually I wouldn't be, this far ahead until 4:30 at night back in the day. So that's what it's all about. I know a lot of people are going to say, wow, man, this is a little intense. But again, we're doing these things so that you can be that person at home who's actually paying attention when you're playing with your kids. And one thing I saw the other week, Jay, is really sad. I was at a park here in Denver, walking around with my business partner on a Saturday morning, having a good conversation. We saw this father playing soccer with his son, and the father had the phone in the hand. You've seen these people at the park.
Yes.
They're with the phone, and the kid's kicking the ball, and the dad, slowly walks over to the ball, not looking up at all, kicks it back to the kid in the general direction. Every time the kid kicks the ball, it's less motivation, less enthusiasm, and the kid's frustrated, and the dad never looks up. And I watched this for several minutes,
right?
And I don't know why the father was doing that, whether it was just, disregard, or whether it was because he had something, stressful on the phone that, he hadn't gotten around to taking care of before. But, when I was a child, certainly cell phones weren't around, but my father never would have done that. When we played catch until I missed the ball and lost the ball in the cornfield. But other than that, we were one-on-one, and I remember those times, and I cherish them dearly. And I wouldn't want to be that kid who thinks like, my dad doesn't really want to pay attention to me. So at the end of the day, we're doing all this work so that you can be the right parent, whether it's teaching your kids, multiplication tables, or reading to them at night, whatever it is. That's what it's all about. And a really great example of this is the COO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg. And I was really skeptical before I read her book, Lean In, but I became a fan of hers after I read the book. Her husband passed away tragically recently, But what they did every single day was, no matter how busy they were, and he was the CEO of SurveyMonkey, which is a big tech company, they were still home on time for dinner every day. And then they went back and did some work, but they knew how important it was to be at home for dinner for your kids, because the research just shows that you have better adjusted kids when you're able to do that. And so that's what we're helping people do with this perfect day formula.
So now we're saving families.
We're helping families save themselves.
Yes, I like it. I often have been known to say that a good tomorrow starts with a great tonight. Yeah, and yeah. I totally get it 100%. But and as a side note for everybody, clearly we won't be approaching Dunkin' Donuts or Burger King as sponsors anytime soon. But that's okay. However, I've heard this phrase, Greg, from people, because they say it to me all the time. Some of our new students, some people they're ingrained in the life that they currently have, right? They see the need to make this change, but then they say things like, well, I don't have the time to whatever, to make these conscious choices and decisions. How do you free someone from that cycle?
It's a great question. Yeah. I mean, so many people they feel like they're stuck in that rat race. And so there's a couple of things that I love for people to do. And I mentioned this before, and I know a lot of people will reject it outright, but please give it a chance here. And that's simply starting by getting up 5 minutes earlier tomorrow. As I said before, most people don't have any time to think. And if you don't have any time to think, then you can't see yourself getting out of the current situation. But let's say you get up 5 minutes earlier tomorrow before anybody else gets up, and you sit down at the kitchen table and you have a pen and a paper, and you just start thinking about your number one problem, or you just start thinking about your schedule in life, or as I really love people to do, you start watching your life as if it's a movie. So you see yourself in your mind's eye. Okay, this guy gets up and he knows that he shouldn't go to Dunkin' Donuts. We may as well just stick to one coffee shop that's not going to sponsor you.
Yes,
so
please.
We'll keep it open for Starbucks. So, why does this man go to Dunkin' Donuts and order that giant coffee? Or why does this man go to the smoothie place and get that smoothie with so much sugar that makes him tired? He knows better than this. And you're watching this movie, you're watching all these decisions that you make over the course of the day. Why do you go to ESPN and, check your bracket, and your fantasy sports? Why are you doing that? You're not going to win, and it wastes time, and you should be doing better things with your time. And why do you go and, eat this fast food? Or why do you, go and stand around the water cooler and just gossip? And why do you get involved in those things when it's not the right thing to do? And so you watch this movie of your life and you take a look and you go, you know what, if I just change these three things, I could probably free up 15 to 30 minutes a day that would allow me to move ahead on my number one priority in life. And there's also we can definitely talk about this. A lot of people struggle and say, well, I don't even know what my number one priority in life is.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you got me all kinds of excited on that one, because I was about to say something. I was like, oh, yes, because that's like the biggest thing. When do we ever sit down to go, here's what I want to do today? Here's what I want to do this week, let alone my entire life. We don't do it intentionally, and then therefore default happens, and our default is messed up, which is, again, why I'm loving what you're putting out here in terms of the perfect day formula. So before we get too much further, how about you just tell us what the plan is? What is the perfect day formula from beginning to end?
As you're listening to this, I'm hoping that you're picking up all kinds of great ideas, small suggestions. Here's the thing that I want to share with you right now. The benefit of attending training, reading books, listening to audios, even podcasts, is to get one idea. What is the value of an idea? Who knows? And it's yet to be determined, to be honest. Here's what I do know. If you constantly, consistently collect just one idea every time you participate with something over time, I'm pretty confident that you will become the person that you're looking for, which I think is absolutely awesome. In fact, if you like some of my ideas, you can pick them up in my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. If you'd like, I'll even give you, my podcast listener, a copy at no cost. All you have to do to get a PDF copy is go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book. And for those of you who are like, Jay, that sounds great, but I'd rather listen to it. Totally understood. You go to the exact same website, cashflowdiary.com/free book, and I'll give you a special offer on the audiobook. And there you go. Anyway, let's go find out about how to get that perfect day.
Right. Great question. And again, you just outlined, the default is to be reactive, whereas the successful person is proactive. They plan. And so the perfect day formula is broken down into 3 parts of the day. And it's actually based on some teaching that I've interpreted from a Stoic philosopher who lived 2,000 years ago named Epictetus. And from his teachings, I came up with this little phrase. It's pretty much his words, but just modified a little bit. And it's control what you can, cope with what you can, and concentrate on what counts. That's just a simple way of living life. Because if you control what you can, all that means is you can control your thoughts, words, and deeds. You can't actually control anything else. You can't control the weather. You can't control the traffic. You can't control your spouse. You can't control your boss. You can't control other people's emergencies that they're going to throw on you. All you can do is control how you react to those things and how you plan and prepare for those things. So in the morning, we control as much as we can, because most people will agree that in the morning you have the most control over your life. You control what time you get up. Right. You control what you're going to eat for breakfast, because most people aren't forced to go out for breakfast as they might be for dinner. They don't have to run their kids around to activities in the morning like they do in the evening, where they're going to be struggling to find something to eat. So you can really control the start of your day. You get up a few minutes early, you focus on your number one priority. You've won a victory that the world cannot take back from you, no matter what comes up the rest of the day. But then you also have rules for how you deal with email and phone calls. So, you don't go into the office and get overwhelmed. And so you have all that control. And there's a whole bunch of things that you can do to really make the most out of your mornings, so that you can be like Jay and really feel like you've done something by 10:30 that just, is fantastic. And I just love that feeling. And then in the afternoon, the world is, and even before then, the world's going to start bringing all these emergencies into your life and, expecting you to deal with it. And so you cope with what you can't control. And I actually teach in the book that there's 5 pillars of success that we use to transform our lives, to create better habits, and to deal with all of this chaos. And those 5 pillars are better planning and preparation, professional accountability, social support, a meaningful incentive, and the big deadline. And we can talk about those in a minute after I go through the 3rd part of the day, which is concentrating on what counts. And that comes back to what we had just talked about, which was figuring out what really matters. And there's a whole bunch of questions. There's about 20 or 21 questions I go through in the book in the final section to help people write a vision for their life. And they maybe heard about a vision for their life or their business and kind of, shrugged it off. But I mean, it's really my favorite part of the book. It's my favorite thing to do. It really gets me fired up, and it really gets me dialed in. And it goes back to that story that I told. If you know exactly what you want to achieve, you know exactly where you want to get to, you can simply build a roadmap for your life. It's just like saying, well, I want to go to Disneyland. Well, if you want to go to Disneyland, you just go on Google Maps and you figure out the best way to get there, and you go there and you get exactly where you want to go. And that's the same thing that we can program our brains to do when we write out the vision for our life. And we're going to go, 3 to 5 years in the future. And what I want people to do is to write out, this is a second movie script of their life. We talked about the movie script of their current life. I want you to write out the movie script of your future life, 3 to 5 years from now, where you're living. I live in this house on Baker Street. We have this pool in the backyard. I have these 2 cars in the garage. I wake up at this time. I do this. I do spiritual stuff or meditation or exercise first thing in the morning. Then I go into my number one priority. I look through these real estate listings. Then I have breakfast, with my wife and the kids. Then I take the kids to this school that they just got into, because now we're financially able to get them into this school. Then I go back home and I work in my office from this time to this time. I have my assistant come by. They do this and this for me. Then at 3:00 every day, I'm done work because I've been able to have my perfect day so that I can go and pick up the kids, take them to this sport or this activity. And then we all sit around and have dinner at night, saving the family. And then, my wife and I, we get involved in these community activities. The kids do this. And then we're still home on time to, shut down the electronics an hour before bed, have conversations, get ready for the next day, and get in bed on time to do it all over again, live that perfect life. And then on weekends, we do this, and we have this holiday every year. And man, I basically spend about 5 pages in my book in chapter 22 outlining how specific my vision is, naming my future kids and naming the charities I'm going to get involved with and where I'm going to live. And you do it in such great detail. It's just like having a vision board, which I believe, which may sound hokey to some people, but I think it's really valuable to have a vision board. And what I do is I rip, things out of the Rob report that I want to have in my life. I want to have net jets in my life eventually because I travel so much.
I know.
Oh man. And, even pictures of houses, the architecture or,
Yep.
offices, stuff like that. I just keep it in front of mind so that I'm always looking for it. And so that's the third part. And if you live by those rules and control your days, then you can come home and really concentrate on enjoying what I just described, enjoying that amazing life that you've designed, but also helping people get there and appreciate it. So those are the 3 parts of the day. And it was difficult for me to figure out where to put in the vision creation, but I left the last part after you've controlled your day and controlled the chaos of the world so that you really come and you are able to focus on really what's, to me, is the most important part.
Yeah, agreed. And as a side note for everyone listening, Craig, do you want to hear something that's really odd for me, but is definitely one of those things inside that vision book for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nice kitchen. Now, I don't know how to cook, but I do like looking at a nice kitchen, even though
I got to tell you something funny.
Yes.
I love buying architecture magazines and home magazines and looking at kitchens. I don't care about any other room in people's houses. And I'm like you, I don't cook. But for some reason, there's just something about the kitchen or, like the bar or something. That's what I really like looking at when I go through like the Rob report or something in the showing houses. So you and I share the same interests there.
That's pretty funny. That's awesome. I had a feeling that it was, I thought I was unique for a second, but I get it. I totally get it. The whole kitchen thing. It's one of those things. Now, I know this is what I know just happened. I know somebody listening, Craig, was going, they were 100% with you. They were vibing. They were bobbing their head. They're like, yes, I'm going to make this happen. And then you started listing out the detail and specificity, and someone interpreted that as work and like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And they probably already maybe even mentally quit on themselves before they even had a chance to get started. What I would love to know is, obviously we want to be as close to perfection or completeness as we possibly can be, but not every day is going to be like that, especially during the process of transition. So how do we get back on track when we've fallen off?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really want people to understand that putting together that vision, it should be enjoyable to them. And then, like you said, there's going to be the days where we're going to struggle, but we should always be focusing on the constant and never-ending improvement. And how do we do that? That's the middle section of the book. That's the 5 pillars. That's coping with what the world is just going to throw at us on the toughest days. Because some days we're going to be on time and then there's going to be a flat tire. It's not our fault. And, we got to deal with that. And so let's look at those 5 pillars in detail because, I've done a lot of these calls and people will go, you know what, that's the gold mine right there. So first of all, better planning and preparation than ever before. So it's not just, I want to have a house on this street or this part of town, but it is, I want to have a house on this exact street and I want to have this exact house and I want to get it, at this deal. And, I want to know exactly what I'm going to do to get there. And so you better planning and preparation. And just as an aside, I found these 5 pillars through my weight loss transformation contest that I've run for over 8 years now. And I realized when people won the contest, they always had these 5 pillars in place. And if they, quit after 2 weeks, it's because they were missing 2 or 3 of the pillars. So that's how I was shown these things and proven time and again they're so important. So better planning and preparation, and then you need professional accountability. You need a mentor. You need somebody who is going to give you expert advice and who is going to hold your feet to the fire and not take any excuses. So whether that is a paid mentor, like if somebody wants to get into real estate for cash flow, they got to go to you, Jay. They have to. There's no way they're going to accomplish it on their own. When I wanted to build my online business, I had to hire a mentor. He coached me through everything. You want to find someone who has been there and done that and shares your morals and your ethics. And that is the person that you either hire, or you buy all their books, you watch all their videos, or you find a way to intern with them, or you travel across the world to go to their seminars, like people that come to the blacksmith camp to learn from Simon Black that we attend every summer. So you do everything you possibly can. Once you know that is going to be my mentor, you do everything you possibly can to get all their information and to add value back into their life and become one of their best success stories. Now, the next pillar is positive social support. And that kind of sounds like accountability to some people, but I look at it as the professional accountability is your coach, and the positive social support are the cheerleaders. They're the people on the side of the race as you're running the Boston Marathon, coming up Heartbreak Hill, and they're just cheering you on. And they're going to be like that every single day, no matter how bad the day is. They're never going to give you advice. They're never going to hold you accountable, but they're always going to be saying, you can do it, don't quit now. And so you need those people in your life. The fourth pillar is the meaningful incentive. And I've changed this over time from simply an incentive to having a meaningful incentive. It's fine for people to say, I want to get rich or I want to lose weight. And, at certain times of the year, that'll keep them going for a couple of weeks. But I mean, that's not meaningful to most people. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're 165 pounds or 175 pounds, that's not really going to change anything. But if losing 10 pounds gives you more energy to keep up with your kids, then that is meaningful.
Right.
Or, buying that first house gives you cash flow and helps you pay down some other debts and, start building that foundation of financial freedom so that you can help your kids get to college or so that you can retire. That's meaningful. And so that's what we have to look at is what's the real meaningful incentive, what's really driving us to change. And we have to be clear about that. That's really important. Are you ready for the fifth one?
I am totally ready. I'm actually taking notes again.
Yeah. So this is the most important one, or this is the one that has the greatest impact on your success when you have the 5 pillars in place. And it is the big deadline. And every time I write that, I capitalize the word, all the letters big and and deadline. So it's so important because without a deadline, as you know, things just get put off and put off and put off. And Tim Ferriss, in his wonderful book, The 4-Hour Workweek, says he introduces us to a concept called Parkinson's Law. And that basically says that a task expands to fill the time allotted for it. So your kids have an essay due in 3 weeks. They're going to wait until midnight the night before. If it's due in 4 weeks, it would take them 4 weeks to do it. If it was due in 2 weeks, it would take them miraculously 2 weeks to do it. So it's all about that deadline. And the deadline serves a couple of purposes. First, it gives us that finish line so that, when we're slogging through a tough day, we go, you know what, we only have to go that much further. So it's the light at the end of the tunnel. And most people think if you're given a program, like 12 weeks is a good length of time for any life change, because most people think, okay, 12 weeks, I can do that. And if you do the math on a 75-year lifespan, that's 0.03% of your life. So if you say to somebody, can you give me 0.03% of your life? I think most people are going to say, yeah, sure, I can commit to something for that long. And so, put that deadline on it. And, dealing in the real estate world, you guys have deadlines all the time. So the power of a deadline to get people to act. And if you don't know it, think about Christmas.
Right.
Do you know what day Christmas is every single year?
I have an inkling, yes.
Do you know when the mall is packed?
Yes.
December 24th. And those people also know that Christmas is December 25th. And so that is a real world example of people pushing to the deadline because it makes people take action. Because humans, we're funny people, we're funny things in that we will procrastinate on most things. So you have to have a deadline in there, no matter what you're trying to change, whether it's a deadline of getting some documents filled out today so that you don't miss the closing, or whether it's a deadline of I want to change my health and nutrition in the next 6 weeks. You give that deadline, you tell your professional accountability that, you tell your social support that, and those people are going to help you hit your goal by your deadline.
Indeed, indeed. So here's the $1 million question for those looking to change their perfect day or change their life and have more perfect days. Because you mentioned something that I find to be very, very true, especially in the real estate world, especially when I'm working with someone new. And I say, okay, how long do you think it's going to take? Like one of my standard questions, especially for our higher level coaching clients, is to find out what their goals are and more importantly, how long they think it's going to take them to achieve it. And I will frequently hear things like, well, I'd like to get, to the point to where I have, 50 to 100 houses or units so that I could live off the cash flow, et cetera, et cetera. And then I ask them how long they think that's going to take. Well, often it's, that'll be 5 to 10 years. And I always follow that up with, why do you think it's going to take that long? And they never, ever have an answer because they just thought that's what it's going to take. And I'm like, no, what you just said is 9, maybe 12 months of work, if that.
Wow.
So let me ask you this. When you don't have, like we're going after these changes, when you don't have a frame of reference, how do you figure out how much time to give yourself for something like that so that you are pushing yourself at least hard enough to get to the goal?
Wow, that's a question I've never been asked before. So, as I always say in these interviews, the interview is dictated by the quality of the question, and that's a fantastic one. So, here it comes back to professional accountability. You have to have that expert advice because, like you said, most people are going to come to you. I thought that when you said most people think 5 to 10 years. I thought you were going to laugh and say, I can't believe people think they're going to be able to do it that quick. And then here you come back and say the exact opposite of what I'm thinking because I'm a novice. I'm naive to this. You're the expert. And that's why it's so important to have that mentor because the mentor has been there and done that. And again, it doesn't matter if you're getting what I call a virtual mentor, which means you're going to the library and getting all their books for free, or if you're accelerating your progress and you're hiring the best mentor that you can get. But you wouldn't have that specific and correct, which is very important, correct deadline for your plan if you didn't have the expert advice from a coach. And going back to why I even differentiate between professional accountability and social support, it's because there's research that shows when people are accountable to a professional, they are going to get more results than when they're just accountable to a friend. So that's what you need. That is the answer.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that because that's it. When we rely on our friends, they always say, "Yeah, 5 to 10 years sounds great." And in my experience, that's just way too much time to give yourself for something that, honestly, that's small in the real estate world. It doesn't take that long. So I was just curious to hear what your thoughts would be on how to set that deadline so that we could have more realistic expectations. As we go out there to become awesome. Now,
yeah, right. And like if somebody said to me, like, I want to lose, 20 pounds and, this year, I'd be like, well, listen, we can accelerate that because I'm the expert in that. Or if somebody said to me, I want to get, 1,000 customers through my online business, I'd be like, well, you don't have to take 2 years to do that. We can get that done lickety split if you're willing to do the work. 28 days, we should be able to crank that out. And here's exactly what we would do over the next 28 days. And so you're right. It's all about the expert who has the plan because they've done it so many times before.
Indeed. And that's what I like about your plans, and everything that I've ever known about you is structured. It's like right there. It's easy to follow. It's been tested tens of thousands of times across many different people. So here's the thing. Because I know there's still another person listening. I know there's someone listening right now who said to themselves, I've tried things like this before, but it didn't work. Or maybe it's not for me. what would you say to that person who's feeling the just feeling that remorse or that way? Like, I can't change.
Yeah, and I think that most people have only been given parts of the puzzle in the past. And so, it's like, okay, well, we're going to help you manage your time. And that's fine. But if you manage your time and you're still doing the wrong things, like if you're really productive at doing task B, but task A is what you should be doing to get ahead, you're never actually going to get ahead because you're going to be doing the wrong things all the time.
But you're going to be doing the wrong thing well.
You're going to be doing them really well. You're going to be really efficient and getting nowhere. And, you're really going to be spinning your wheels and stuck in the mud. And so what, my formula has come along and does is it takes somebody who's spinning their wheels and just gently lifts up the bumper and puts the wheels out of the mud and onto the pavement so that they go from 0 to 60. And so it has all of those components. Well, first of all, we're going to control your day and help you get more done. But we're going to help you get the right things done because we're going to have you figure out, well, what the heck are the right things? So, again, most people, like you said earlier, Jay, is they struggle to figure out exactly what's important. They struggle to figure out what really matters to them. And I always like to use this example of this movie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it does have a real estate agent in it. So there's a bit of a connection. But there was a movie called American Beauty that came out in 1999. And, these people have everything. They have a beautiful white house. They have a white picket fence.
I am going to sell the house today.
Right. Yeah. That was something else with that scene there. And so, but they let their life fall apart because they're reactive and they don't know what matters. And it becomes this American tragedy. And it's really, really sad. And, I think that's a really extreme example. But most people, we go back to what we talked about before, is they at the very least are having their days stolen from them because they haven't figured out exactly what it is that they should be working so hard towards. And they're working hard every day, but not working in that right direction. So, if you send somebody off to New York by telling them to swim across the Pacific Ocean, they're going to do a lot of work, but they're not going to get anywhere. They're going to end up on the wrong side of the world, far away from New York, when it's so much easier to get to New York when well, here's the destination, here's the roadmap, here's the work that you do. And one thing that I've always said to people is that success is simple, but it's not easy. And what I mean by that is, and you'll agree, Jay, it's easy for someone to go out and get the 50 houses under their belt. It's simple for someone to go out and get the 50 houses under their belt because you just follow the plan.
Right.
But it's not easy because people struggle to do the work, and especially if people are struggling and trying to do it on their own. So there's, all of these things that get put in place, the boundaries for their morning to get things done. And then those 5 pillars, which I think have been missing from so many books and so many products and so many courses. It's like, oh, all I need are these 5 things and I can change my life in so many ways. And I've helped people, like I said, get out of debt, lose weight, find the love of their life, all with these 5 things in place because it's so formulaic. And then now they have all the systems in place. And if they have that vision of where they want to go, they have it all in place to get exactly what they want. And I know that sounds like a bold claim to get exactly what they want. But as a person who's actually lived through it and got exactly what they want, and maybe I was 3 months and 17 days late, because I said, in 5 years, and it took me 5 years and 3 months and 17 days. Hopefully people listening will forgive me for that and still stay open-minded about the formula to put in place because, man, if you can help them achieve that in 12 months, those 50 houses, then all they have to do is just follow the formula and they can have exactly what they want.
Indeed. And like you said, those who have been there, we know the shortcuts. We know how to make those things happen. Right. So with all that being said, I know somebody is listening right now. Okay, Greg, just tell me how to get started. So I'm not going to have them email me and be mad if I don't ask you. So what's going to be the best way for them to get started on their own perfect day formula?
Well, that's I'm going to ask people to go to perfectdayformula.com. And I'm going to walk you through and believe this or not, an unboxing video on the page nice. Where I unbox all of the tools in our Perfect Day Formula kit that are going to answer all those questions. They're going to help you control your mornings. They're going to help you identify those 5 pillars for success in any aspect of your life. And they're going to, most important, help you create that vision for your life. So you go, aha, this is the most important thing in my life right now. My kids, and I want to do everything I possibly can to give them everything that they deserve. And so if those are the most important things in my life, then I realize I need to do this, this, and this. And I'm going to use the other 2 parts of the formula to create my days and get me there the fastest way possible. And you're also going to get a couple of other little goodies like our gratitude journal in there. And then this really cool scripting pad that allows you to do a brain dump and allows you to script out and schedule your days is another bonus that we put in there. So just go to that page, perfectdayformula.com, and watch me unbox the video, and you'll be really excited to get started and make those changes in your life.
I know I was especially pleased with the gratitude journal because, cash flow diary, gratitude journal, journal diary. Anyway, it's definitely an exercise that I participate in consistently. So I was like, yes, this is going in all the right kinds of directions. There's just so much that we can control, but we choose to not control. And I believe what you've put together gives everybody now a chance at being in more control, or at least having more guidance of the direction where things end up.
Yeah, and Jay, ever since I've known you, until now, I had never put it all together. But just through our conversations, at the camps and stuff, I'd watched you. You are an action taker. You go and immediately put some of this stuff into place, like same day. And it was awesome to see your progress with just the little tips here and there that you were getting from me. And now, you've done so much, again, just with a few of the things in the book. And now you have the entire kit there that you can take and just, triple productivity and success. So, if people just take action on a few things, they'll get ahead. But if they put it all into place, they're just going to be like a rocket ship.
Absolutely agreed. So one final question, if you would, please. I know there's at least one entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur out there listening today, and they're still in that decision-making phase, and they're wondering to themselves, man, it sounds like I'm gonna have to become a different person. I've got to do all these things and I have all this stuff to learn. And they see this really big mountain of new things and skill sets that they've got to wade through in order to get to, that proverbial pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that clearly exists for every entrepreneur. What would you say to that person who's feeling that way, but more importantly is hearing that voice in the back of their head that says that occasionally comes up and says things that might keep them from taking the actions that they should?
Well, I would say to them this, you're going to become a better person in so many ways, just overall with this, making the right decisions, having less guilt and remorse. And if you did nothing and got nothing out of the book other than the correct decision making that kept you from having those feelings in the pit of your stomach when you do something wrong and you're going to be in trouble, it'd be worth it just for that alone. You're going to have way better sleep and have way less stress just from making the right decisions from your boundaries and from your pillars and from your vision. But back to somebody who thinks like, man, this seems like such a long journey for me. It's not going to be as long as you think. And what's most important is that every day you're making the classic constant and never-ending improvement, because we'll never reach perfection. We'll never actually reach the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It keeps on moving further away as we keep on walking towards it. Just like you can never walk to the end of the horizon, but you can always move in that direction. And again, this is something I learned from one of my coaches, Dan Sullivan, who leads something called Strategic Coach. And he says, focus on progress, not perfection. So at the end of the day, you got a little bit more done today. You feel a little bit less stressed than you felt every day last week. And you're like, okay, I see this starting to come together, and I'm gonna stick to this. I'm gonna, make a perfect day tomorrow by planning it out tonight. I'm gonna do a little bit better. I know there's still a lot of obstacles in my way, but all I can do is get a little bit better. And that's what we want to be all about at the start. And that's where those positive social support folks are going to come in. So important. Better planning and preparation, and having that coach to say, hey, you did this today. Now let me tell you what you should do tomorrow, because this is the most important thing for you to focus on. And then you'll also have that accountability that you don't want to disappoint your coach in the end. So it's just putting all these things into place. And once you get them into place, a lot of your success activities almost become automatic. And in fact, some of them do. And then you're just, you wake, you're at 10:30 in the morning and you're like, wow, I can't believe I've gotten all this done today. Usually it would take me a week to get it done. So you're going to have those days sooner than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely appreciate that. We use a points accountability system for all of our members and whatnot. And the goal is to be at a minimum of 40 points a day. The high achievers at 80 points a day. And when you start speaking about, those activities, and because it only gives you points for the right activities, but as you track those correct activities, and they do become automatic because you do them so frequently and you don't even realize it after a while. It just becomes part of who you are. And who you are, sir, has helped tens of thousands, I am sure. And I know that the Perfect Day Formula is going to continue to help tens of thousands more. And hopefully those of you listening have gained a lot from this, because I gain every time, Craig opens his mouth. So with that, I would definitely like to thank you for taking the time to invest with us here again at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you so much, Jay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to perfectdayformula.com. Yes, watch the unboxing video. More importantly than just watch, take action, make it happen. You're feeling like you should do something right now. What does that mean? Do it today. That's also called now. What is that? Why do I want you to do that? Because I know that after you finish listening to my voice, after you finish listening right now, you could be tempted to go, I'll do it when I get home. And we all know the law of diminishing intent. So make it happen. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.